Good morning and welcome to the MrMaple Show. Today is the 10 at 10 video for September 5th of 2024.
Oh yeah, do you remember September, man? Well, we're living through it right now. Guys, we got 10 awesome plants, but that's not it. We got 10 more coming straight to that email. Make sure to check those out because you might get a little sneak preview before the 10 at 10 hits, and you're not gonna wanna miss out on that one.
Guys, starting out today, we've got Acer palmatum bihu. This is a yellow bark coral bark. So it's got that bright yellow bark during those winter months. To me, the green on the yellow in the early spring is phenomenal. But when this tree is in the fall and you see the yellow on yellow, it is outstanding.
Yeah, I mean, be how, be who. Argue in the comments down below. There's one thing you can't argue, and that's that amazing yellow coral bark that's happening on this thing during the winter time, man.
Yeah, make sure you give bihu plenty of good drainage. This is a tree that was brought over from Japan around 2008. It really hit the market though because it's one of the most intense of any of the yellow bark selections. I mean, highlighter yellow, and it does green up a little bit during the summer, but as the fall approaches, it gets more and more yellow, and it is at its most intense color on the bark during that winter time frame.
Yeah, I think what's cool is whenever we were talking about fall color with Augustin from France, we were talking about that senescence, and whenever you're watching that video, he talks about that pigment moving from the leaf down through the bark to the bottom of the tree, and that's what's happening, man, is like whenever it turns fall, that's when you'll see this thing light up, and that's that pigment moving from the leaf down the tree. And I mean, that's just like so cool, next level stuff right there.
Yeah, pretty awesome. This is a coral bark that you want to give a backdrop to. Most of the coral bark selections, including the yellow bark selection like bihu, give it a backdrop. It's going to show off better if you plant some evergreens in the background, if you put it up near a house. If you put this out in the open and make it a little more lost. But another cool way to plant this is plant this with some of the other bark selections like a sengukaku, an aoyagi, a winter orange. You can sort of play with some of these other selections that have phenomenal winter interest and create sort of like a trifecta of yourself in the garden to really have some unique winter color.
Yeah, I mean, going to Alan Lyle's house, watching him trim up his coral bark and seeing it in the color that it is, I mean, bihu has some crazy colors. There's a little bit of yellow, a little bit of red mixed in there sometimes, and if you prune it to really highlight that coral bark, it's a tree that everybody's going to stop in and check at the garden and be like, what is this thing?
Get them today. They can sell out fast. Our website doesn't hold it for you until you complete that checkout process. Next up, we've got Mama Maple's favorite Japanese maple, Acer palmatum Benishishihenga. If you see our logo, it is actually the .in .com for the MrMaple.com logo. Hey, where did you get that cool hat?
Guys, you can check out all of the awesome merch that we got on the MrMaple.com. Go check that out. Click on merch, all this awesome hats, all the awesome shirts that we got, contest winner shirts, got tons of Maple Mafia hats, MrMaple Show hats, and MrMaple.com. Don't forget to check those out. Benishishihenga, one of the second or third maples I actually learned just slowly, like based on the actual variegation. You know, there's things like butterfly, there's other Benishishihenga variegation types, but this one is so distinct. I mean, fiery reds, really, really rich pink colors, and that contrast on that nice, lively green. Magnificent.
Yeah, Benishishihenga means red and changeful, and that's because the pink that this is in the early spring, and actually has some pink on the new growth right now, is basically a shade of red to the Japanese. It has that same feeling. To me, this is a beautiful Japanese maple that you want to put somewhere close. You want to have it somewhere where you can go by and appreciate this near a walkway, go by and appreciate all the intricacies of the variegation. I often call it a bouquet Japanese maple because they grow very twiggy at a young age. They're kind of denser and shorter, and when they're at that stage, you can really appreciate each and every leaf, and then they start to grow up, and then they become more and more magnificent with age. Guys, this is an awesome selection. I do recommend, though, staying away from large amounts of nitrogen. Heavy amounts of nitrogen get some solid green shoots, And on Beni Shishihinga, if you get any solid green shoots, those do need to be pruned out.
Yeah, if you're looking for an awesome plant for that significant other, get them a nice bouquet of Beni Shishihinga. It's something that's going to last for more than a week. Something y'all can always go back and look at and just see how beautiful that leaf is. I mean, amazing, awesome tree. Guys, next up we got Acer palmatum Ghost Dragon, an Area 51 introduction from this guy and his brother Matt, man.
Guys, this is part of that Pendulous Treasures collection. In the early spring, this leaves out with really sharp looking leaves, and they have a purple border to them. And sometimes in the early spring, especially if you have this outside, you can get a ghost-like reticulation starting on the interior part of the leaf. And that's where this tree gets the name Ghost Dragon. It doesn't show it every year, but sometimes it does. And guys, when it does, it's just that little extra really uniqueness that you have out there in the garden.
Yeah, I mean, Ghost Dragon, some of the best adjectives you can have for that maple, and we got both of them together. This thing is spectacular when you start to see that reticulation in the specific years. That reticulation is something magical because you've already got so many nice things. I mean, awesome leaf shape, awesome habit, great fall color, great spring color, and you add that reticulation on top of it. It's just that little chef's kiss. And this is an amazing one. Anytime I see this on a standard or staked a little bit higher, it just evokes that emotion from you, and it's an amazing cultivar.
Now, most of the ones we're listing today are grafted about 6 inches, so it's fairly low when it comes to actual grafting. This has a heavily cascading habit. Sometimes these are used in hanging baskets that are this sort of lower on the graft mark, and it just sort of cascades. It's got such a strong cascading habit though. You can grow this in so many different ways, like the Rayusen types, from hanging baskets to ground covers. You can stake them up and let them flow down like a fountain. Get creative. This is one of the trees that you can get extremely creative with because it's easily predictable how the extremely strong weeping habit will grow.
Yeah, I mean, you could make a whole entire dragon out there out of Ghost Dragon in the landscape. I mean, that's pretty killer.
Next up, we've got Pinus strobus Builtmore Blue.
Guys, this specific tree has a pretty awesome meaning to me. These 1 gallons were actually some of the ones that I helped Tim cut. The very first scion wood that I ever took with Tim, we were going trimming up a Builtmore Blue, getting some nice wood from it. And now finally, after a year or two, they're finally here. And it's pretty awesome to see all that work we did and get them back and get them out to you guys, because this is an awesome, nice dwarf cultivar, a witch's broom off of a Pinus strobus from the Builtmore house.
Yeah, the story goes they found this witch's broom growing at the Builtmore estate in a white pine. And white pines are phenomenal because they have this sort of blue-green color to the needles. The dense, compact habit of a witch's broom means this is going to be more dense and compact. And they actually took a shotgun and shot out the witch's broom, took the cuttings, grafted them, and introduced it into the nursery trade. One of our good friends, Richard Bomar, was one of the first people to get it. It almost disappeared from the nursery trade, but then we got one that Richard had purchased and really started producing it to get it out there. Dense, round habit. You know, after 10 years, we're talking 3 to 4 feet tall, 3 to 4 foot wide, and the blue-green color on this is phenomenal.
Yeah, I mean, this obviously it reminds me of places like the Builtmore house, you know, living in Asheville for a couple of years, but then it reminds me of that citrusy smell from whenever we cut the actual scion wood from this. And it's just kind of a luxurious plant. I mean, it's been chilling on the Builtmore estate for its whole entire life. You can now have a little piece of history and a little slice of luxury in your garden with the Builtmore Blue, and that's pretty awesome.
Yeah, get one today.
All right, guys, Acer palmatum Yamanishi. Pretty cool.
Yeah, sometimes this is sold as Snow Peak. This is a selection that was introduced into the nursery trade by Fred Hooks and really started gaining traction because it is one of the most white forms of that Higashiyama style. In the early spring when this leaves out, it really gives some really nice white reticulation with that Higashiyama style variegation, typically not much on the pink side. And with that white, it really just rocks it out. Midsummer, a lot of those styles go a little greener, and that's very typical. So when you see these in the landscape, they don't revert, but midsummer, they will be a lot greener than they are in that early spring time frame. Y'all, this to me is one of my favorite styles of Japanese maple. There's not many that are that palmate that have that reticulation, and Yamanishi does that in one of the whitest ways.
Yeah, I mean, the Higaseyama style variegation is just, it's so amazing seeing that little white streamer going right down the middle of the leaf. And I think this one just looks so striking at a larger size. Pretty nice size 1 gallons we got here, but it reminds me of whenever we went out to Don Schmidt Nursery. We saw some really nice sizes of this, and right in front of it was a Magi Shiguri. I'm just thinking that's a great little combination. You got that purple playing off the white, but then as it starts to green up during the summer, you're still getting that contrast. And I mean, 2 awesome plants. This one is just, you know, has a nice size leaf. You kind of get a little bit more bang for your buck than that regular Higaseyama style leaf. And I mean, great shape and form too.
Guys, Yamanishiki has that really strong upright form. You know, to get that best variegation, let it leaf out slower. You know, avoid lots of amounts of fertilizer in the early spring, and you really get the most white out of Yamanishiki, also known as Snow Peak.
Yeah, have some Snow Peaks in your garden.
Guys, we're bringing back Cerces canadensis, Carolina Sweetheart. And we're bringing them back in quart pots. We sold out of the gallons that we had available, and we were able to get our hands on these awesome quart size. They're about the same size as those 1 gallons were before, but this is one of those red buds that gives you a multitude of colors with pinks, whites, greens. It's one of the most colorful red buds of them all.
Yeah, I mean, this was one, people were freaking out over it at open house whenever we first dropped it, and it's easy to know why. I mean, that white border, that white variegation inside of the Cerces canadensis heart-shaped leaf, I mean, aptly named as Carolina Sweetheart, a native red bud bred in North Carolina, and this thing is just drop dead gorgeous, man.
Now, one advantage of these quarts is many of these can ship in our 1 gallon boxes, so they'll be a little bit cheaper to ship than many of our 1 gallons were before. But this tree is just electric. It was a selection that was bred and introduced by our good friend Dr. Tom Rainey, who we recently shot a podcast with at the NC Research Center in Mills River. This tree just breaks everything that you think about with red buds, because the colors on this are outrageous. It was shocking to me that this sold out quicker than flamethrowers did for us.
I mean, I kind of understand. I think this one is like, it's pulling at my heartstrings. You know, I love that pink, white, and green variegation on a plant, especially a red bud. I mean, that weeping habit, it's just gonna get out in the landscape. These are fairly vigorous in our area. And I mean, just electric. If you're in the doghouse, maybe pick up a Carolina Sweetheart, because whoever you're getting it for is gonna love it.
I know I had to pick one up for my sweetheart.
Exactly.
She saw these getting dropped on a 10 at 10 and she said, get me one. I want one for our yard. And I'm a foliage person, so I look at these heart-shaped leaves. I love it, all the colors. But this is a red bud. This is a selection of a native species that actually blooms before the leaves come out. And you get blooms on the older growth with that dark purple red kind of color all the way from the base going up, which is outstanding. Most plants only bloom on the new wood. Red buds, they can bloom on the old wood as well. For a tree that will end up being upright with a semi-pendulous habit, add some amazing colors, give you some flower interest. It's hard to beat Carolina Sweetheart.
Yeah, start your Valentine's Day a little early with a Carolina Sweetheart.
Next up, we've got Acer palmatum Hanezu Hagoromo, also known as the orange Hagoromo.
This kind of maple, the Cecilifolium, the angel feather maples, man, that is just like one of those trees where you finally get to see one and you're like, holy cow, like that is just next level. And the orange Hagoromo is something that just takes that even further with that orange yellow color in the springtime. Awesome tree.
Yeah, it leaves out as that orange, where it gets the name of orange Hagoromo, and then goes to the yellow color. And that yellow color becomes more intense as the summer goes on. The unique thing about this Cecilifolium is most of the other angel feather structures, like Benny Hagoromo, Koshi-Minnow, they're upright tall trees. This one actually grows in more of a shrub-like form, equally as tall as it is wide. That means it gives you a lot of awesomeness down low, gives you some great colors, but the leaf structure is so unique on this because every lobe is heavily divided. And that just gives a unique texture, but it also just gives a very soft feel for a yellow tree that adds a lot to the landscape.
Yeah, watching this one almost get that bleach white color that we see most yellows get towards in the heat of the summer, and just with all those little feather-like leaves, so amazing. And I just can't wait to see, I'm like, how far can we take the cecilifoliums? You know, it's like, when will we see some crazy white, fully white, or some variegated varieties? Because that's just going to be so next level. And who knows, it might start with Hnezu Hagoromo, man.
And if you like angel feather structured Japanese maples like Hnezu Hagoromo, check out I did a whole breakdown of the cecilifolium group, the secrets of the cecilifolium group, the angel feather Japanese maples. Check out that video. There's a lot more about this unique leaf structure.
Yeah, guys, these are flying off the shelf.
Y'all, next up we've got Acer japonicum Abby's Weeping. This is a unique, slower growing, heavily cascading and pendulous selection of a lace leaf full moon Japanese maple.
Yeah, weeping, you know, this thing is going to make you actually jump for joy, especially whenever you see that fall color these things put on. I mean, the lace leaf plus japonicum full color, given that speckled yellow, reds, purples, oranges, all in the same leaf on a lace leaf. I mean, that's just killer. This is one of my favorite varieties of japonicum, specifically for that reason.
And guys, we've got some really large 1 gallons right now of Abby's Weeping. This is a slow grower. We're talking much slower than Green Cascade or Oregon Fern. It makes such a beautiful tree out in the garden because of its heavily cascading habit. It really stands out from many of the other weeping Acer japonicums. The japonicum lace leaves, they're really special. They have very intricate dissected leaves. It just grabs my attention. You typically want to give most of the japonicum some protection from the hot afternoon sun in most climates. But the fall color, like Corbin was talking about earlier, it's some of the best of any of the trees. And the unique thing about the japonicums is they go to fall color based on the length of the day, shortening as that fall approaches, not the weather. So you can get a very consistent fall color out of many Acer japonicums.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just so enthralled by the lobes on this one. I mean, such detail in the lobes and the sublobes, and just an awesome, really spreading out of the leaf itself. And I mean, a great canvas for some fall color, great sizes. Yeah, Abby's Weeping is a killer tree.
Y'all, next up, we've got Styx japonicus Nightfall. This is one of the killer new plants. First time getting dropped ever today on Mr. Maple. We've got him some good size 6 gallons right now, y'all. Take advantage of this tree. It's rare that this tree is offered mail order. It's rare that this tree is offered in a size that can actually be shipped to your door. Y'all, this is a groundbreaking new selection of a hybrid Styx japonicus that has that weeping habit people love with something like Fragrant Fountain, but also the dark leaves that they like of something like Evening Light. And so you get both. You get this heavily cascading habit and this dark colored leaves on Nightfall.
Yeah, I mean, this tree, I talk about checking boxes on trees. I mean, dark foliage, a glossy leaf, a weeping habit. You're gonna have awesome flowers and smell. I mean, you can't check many more boxes than that with one plant, and this one just brings it. I mean, once we were pulling these off of the truck, they just catch your eye. You know, seeing it in a darker climate makes it look even blacker, but then bringing it out to the light, you slowly start to see all the nuances and color, and the shine of this leaf just takes it out of the ballpark, man.
I mean, the heavily cascading habit of this gives you a graceful feel in the garden. This is a tree that doesn't get too large, but this Japanese snowbell produces those white blooms in the early spring, adds that extra interest to the garden. And with this selection having the white blooms on the darker leaves, it shows up phenomenally well. Nightfall, groundbreaking in the world of Styx. It adds some of the most amazing things with Styx, having its weeping habit and that dark purple red color.
And I just love plants that contrast in themselves, man. I mean, that white bloom on this dark background is gonna look amazing during the springtime. And then that smell's gonna hit you. You're gonna be floating like one of them old Looney Tune characters. And it's gonna be pulling you right towards this thing in the garden.
I mean, killer sizes. We can ship these size trees now, so take advantage of getting a large tree like this that'll make an immediate impact in your garden. Now, we offered this tree earlier this year in 1 gallons. We're offering now in tall 3 gallons. We're talking about Quercus robur, so it's an English oak, stripemund.
Yeah, I mean, you talk about funky looking trees. We got this cut leaf oak with a little bit of variegation in there. I mean, this is going to be one of those trees that's going to stump all your plant collector friends. And I mean, this is just a crazy one. It's pretty mysterious as well.
I like how it gets that yellow malting on the inside. It's kind of like a magic moon, but of English oaks. I mean, you get that unique malting variegation on the center of the leaf. Y'all, this is a large tree out in the landscape, and you get a large tree with funky leaves. So this will make a statement in the garden and really stand out.
Yeah, I mean, the craziness of the leaf is just something that throws me for a loop every time. I mean, you see some of this newer growth. It's thinner than, say, a linguine pasta noodle or something like that, man. It's just wild. It looks like it's just barely hanging on there. And I mean, this is an awesome plant for that crazy plant collector who wants something different in their garden.
Y'all, that was 10 of the 20 trees on today's 10 at 10. We got another 10 in that email, so check that out if you want to see that. They also get listed at 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time on MrMaple.com. Y'all, take advantage of these cool plants while they're listed. A lot of times trees sell out, and if something does sell out, you can always click that notify me button so you can be notified when they get listed again.
Yeah, remember to take care.
God bless.
And have a great day.